Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio to lose weight for the last time. Visit myphdweightloss.com. Is Joe Biden a Mount Rushmore worthy president? Nancy Pelosi believes so. We will discuss Pelosi's crazy interview with Lesli Stahl yesterday when she suggested Joe Biden has been at the top of his game. Senator Lindsey Graham issued a warning to former President Trump to focus on Vice President Harris's bad judgment instead of her heritage as he runs for a second term in the Oval Office. 14 days and counting. That's the number of days since Kamala Harris appeared to have the Democrat nomination locked up, yet she still has not held a news conference to discuss what her administration would do if elected. Is Kamala using a page out of the Biden playbook from 2020 when he used the excuse of COVID to not hold news conferences? We'll jump into that as well. In the latest Wall Street Journal survey, swing state voters blast high housing prices under Biden-Harris, saying, "My dollar went further when Trump was president," and the simple economics of this year's presidential race may be the deciding factor on who wins in November.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start with former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who suggested yesterday that President Biden could be added to Mount Rushmore after choosing to step out of the 2024 race. This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard, and the goofiest that Nancy Pelosi has ever said. Nancy Pelosi herself may want to take Joe Biden's lead and step down as well. CBS journalist Lesli Stahl asked Ms. Pelosi about reports claiming that she had led efforts to remove Biden from the presidential ticket following his disastrous debate against former President Trump. And there was a lot of suggestion that Nancy Pelosi was leading the effort, that Nancy Pelosi was pressuring Joe Biden to get out of the race, to step aside, to let a younger candidate, someone who would have a better chance at beating Donald Trump in November. Pelosi denied leading any charge to oust Biden, and instead remarked how he was at the top of his game before making his decision to lead the race. She suggested the choice was worthy of Biden joining the presidents on Mount Rushmore. Listen to the exchange.
Had you seen a decline in Joe Biden, and did you think he needed to step aside?
No. My whole point was, whatever he decides, but we have to have a more aggressive campaign.
She mentioned his many accomplishments, including his forceful leadership of the NATO summit with other Western heads of state.
So he was in a good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next.
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore, Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
Wow. And she seemed to be dead serious about this. In the days leading up to Biden deciding not to run again, multiple reports emerged suggesting that Pelosi was pressuring him to step down out of the concern that he would lose against Donald Trump. However, Pelosi continued to publicly voice her support for the president, adding that it was his decision to make, despite Biden insisting he would run again. And so as she sits down with Lesli Stahl, denying that she was part of any pressure campaign, and suggesting that Joe Biden has been at the top of his game and that Joe Biden is worthy of being added to Mount Rushmore? That is laughable. And I would hope that Democrats and Republicans alike back in California would seriously consider whether Nancy Pelosi is in her right mind and whether maybe it's time for her to move on as well. We'll see. Have you noticed that we haven't heard much from Kamala Harris since Joe Biden made the big announcement? And she gathered enough commitments from delegates to become the presumptive Democrat nominee. Harris has gone 14 days without holding a formal press conference since becoming the likely nominee from the Democrat Party. She announced that she had locked up the nomination on July 22nd, declaring that she had won commitments of backing from a majority of the 4,000 delegates to the Democrat National Convention coming up in just a couple of weeks now. Now, she's hit the campaign trail. She's spoken at various events, and she's even chatted with reporters between events, but she hasn't done a formal press conference or wide-ranging interview in the days that have followed. She also failed to appear at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago, the one where Trump made headlines last week with the heated question and answer session. On Thursday, she briefly addressed reporters at Joint Base Andrews as she and President Biden greeted Americans who had been returned in the massive prisoner swap last week. She, of course, made a mess out of that as she delivered one of her word salads in talking about how impressive Joe Biden had been at playing a role in the return of the hostages. Much of the Democrat Party, including governors, senators, and House members, as well as party leaders, have quickly coalesced behind Harris. But you have to ask yourself, and National Review senior writer Noah Rothman asked his social media followers on Wednesday, when is Kamala Harris going to hold a press conference? When is she going to put herself out there and allow members of the media to ask substantive questions? The R-S.C research account on X noted on Wednesday that she has only done teleprompter speeches, while conservative pundit Ben Shapiro said Harris has not answered one difficult question in the last week and a half. Well, she hasn't been asked one difficult question because she hasn't put herself in a position to where reporters really have a chance to do that. Newsbusters executive editor Tim Graham expects her to follow President Biden's 2020 playbook when he was famously accused of hiding in his basement during the COVID pandemic. He wasn't just accused, he did. We all saw it. Joe Biden would not be president today if it had not been for the COVID pandemic and the way that changed the entire way the 2020 campaign was handled. Joe Biden did not campaign. Joe Biden, if you look at it, he really hasn't campaigned for president at all because he didn't have to in 2020. He didn't think he was going to have to this year. Graham told Fox News Kamala Harris should absolutely hold a press conference. One would expect it when she names her vice presidential pick, but we cannot expect her to break from Biden's serial avoidance of press conferences. He says, since the 2020 campaign, we've witnessed the bizarre spectacle of Donald Trump granting wide access to networks that suggest he's a fascist and hammer him daily, while Biden and Harris won't grant interviews to media outlets that gurgle all over them and their historic accomplishments, in quotation marks. We all know that was tongue-in-cheek. Either they think the press can never be servile enough, or they are projecting a complete lack of confidence in their efforts to put complete sentences together. I suggest it's the latter. DePaul University media studies professor Jeffrey McCall believes the Harris campaign is well aware that Biden dodged the media through his 2020 campaign and still got elected. McCall added The Harris camp is also well aware that their candidate doesn't do well in unscripted settings, not to mention that a presser or legitimate sit-down interview would necessarily require her to defend some of her positions, previous statements, and her record. Thus, a rerun of the Biden basement campaign sounds pretty good, as long as you throw in a couple of rallies with Megan the Stallion, he said. This, of course, referencing last week's rally in Atlanta, where the rapper filled up the stadium or the arena to get a crowd there to listen to her. He suggested that Harris doesn't feel pressure to do a press conference just because she is falling into the nomination. He said the supporters rallying around her don't expect her to be accountable and have little interest in her policy positions and so on. That she's not Biden or Trump is sufficient for those supporters. From a rhetorical strategy standpoint, however, it would behoove Harris to actually do a presser and do real journalistic interviews. She's not going to do it. She never will. I can guarantee it. She's going to hide just like Joe Biden did, just not in her basement. She's going to hide out in the public. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Soon going to be 4 years ago that I started my journey with PhD weight loss and nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, I might add, and I've been able to maintain that for almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years coming up in July. If this is the year that you have decided that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to lose that weight, that visceral fat that's so damaging around your waist, then now's the time to start. Let me encourage you to make that call today. 864-252-4925. Set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutritionist. Boy, am I glad that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas 4 years ago and that she got me on the right path to getting healthy. You're going to be able to do things that you may have thought you'd never be able to do again. Play with the kids, the grandkids, be able to hike and walk and maybe play a full 18-round hole of golf and be able to do it and not get so winded. Because when you take that excess weight off, you're just going to feel better. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to sleep better. Your overall health is just going to be improved. 864-252-4925. Call, set up your initial consultation. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Republican Florida Representative Byron Donalds sparred with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos yesterday over Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity. Former President Donald Trump argued last week at the National Association of Black Journalists conference in Chicago that he wasn't aware that Harris was black till a few years ago due to her Indian heritage. Now, Donalds pushed back on the question from Stephanopoulos regarding the statement made by Trump, arguing how Harris's race has been played up over the years. Representative Donalds was immediately asked by George Stephanopoulos. I mean, you could tell that Stephanopoulos was loaded for bear, ready to go when Representative Donalds immediately came on. That was his first question. Wasn't, hey, how are you? Thanks for being here. It was jumping right to the question of why this was an issue. And they argued back and forth with Donald repeatedly trying to get Stephanopoulos back on real issues when George wouldn't let it go. George Stephanopoulos was determined he was going to try to make a point with Representative Byron Donalds, although I think Donalds probably got the last word on this. Here's the first part of the exchange.
Hi, Byron Donalds. Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning. Why is former President Trump questioning the Vice President's racial identity?
Well, first, George, in Chicago, he was responding to a question from, I believe, Rachel Scott. Like, this is really a phony controversy. I don't really care. Most people don't. But if we're going to be accurate, when Kamala Harris went into the United States Senate, it was AP that said she was the first Indian-American United States senator. It was actually played up a lot when she came into the Senate. Now she's running nationally. Obviously, the campaign has shifted. They're talking much more about her father's heritage and her black identity. It doesn't really matter. The president mentioned it. What he also talks about far more frequently is the fact that Kamala Harris is the person who created this massive inflation, which is destroying black families, white families, Hispanic families. It's her failure as borders are, that has left our southern border wide open, more than 10 million illegal immigrants coming into our country, record fentanyl coming into our country, which has killed more Americans than at any other point in the history of our country with respect specifically to fentanyl, and the fact that she and Joe Biden have unleashed one of the worst foreign policies in the history of our country that has us on the verge of World War III. That is Kamala Harris's record. President Trump talks about that frequently, but yes, he did mention it in Chicago in response to a question from Rachel Scott.
And you just repeated the slur again. If it doesn't matter, why do you all keep questioning her identity? She's always identified as a black woman. She is biracial. She has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. She's always identified as both. Why are you questioning that?
Well, George, first of all, this is something that's actually a conversation throughout social media right now. There were a lot of people who are trying to figure this out. But again, that's a side issue, not the main issue. The main issue.
Sir, one second. You just did it. You just did it again.
Of the United States.
Why do you insist on questioning her racial identity?
You want me to talk?
I want you to answer my question.
George, now that you're done yelling at me, let me answer. He talked about it on the stage yesterday in Atlanta for, 2 minutes? He spent more than 35, 40 minutes going after her record, talking about how radical of a senator that she was. She was the most liberal senator in the United States, in the United States Senate. That is a fact. He talked about the job that she did as vice president of the United States, a job, I will add, which has been a failure for the American people. I know you guys like to glom on to this that he talks about in jest or in a serious manner for about a minute or so, but what you do not cover is the litany of failures of Kamala Harris. That's what you're not covering, George.
So questioning somebody's racial identity for a couple minutes is okay?
George, I'm going to tell you again, he brought it up. AP is the one that wrote the headline when she first came in to the United States Senate. Didn't talk about her being black, talked about her being the first Indian American senator. AP brought that up. I mean, George, we could have this conversation for the entire segment, but none of this matters to the American people. What matters to the American people is, are we going to have the same policies of the Biden-Harris administration that has been destructive of the American people, or are we going to have the policies of the Trump administration, which put America first, had low inflation, prosperous Americans, no matter your race, no matter your color, no matter your creed, and a foreign policy that kept America safe? Those are the facts that truly matter, because this issue is going to come and go. The lives of the American people is what's going to remain, and that's what matters more than anything else.
Now, as you notice, Stephanopoulos kept trying to bring it back around, trying to say that Byron Donalds was wrong in continuing to bring up Harris's racial background, when he wasn't. I mean, Stephanopoulos was the one who kept bringing it up. Stephanopoulos was the one who kept challenging. Again, when he started the interview, it was like George Stephanopoulos had one goal for this interview, and this was to try to back Byron Donalds into the corner and try to pin him down on why Donald Trump should not be talking about Kamala Harris's race. Now, there was a lot of discussion over the weekend about whether Donald Trump should have done this. I asked you that question last week. I got a mixed review, and I still ask you that. I'd love to get your comments. You can text me. You can email me directly, joey@joeyhudson.com, and I hope you will, because there's been a lot of discussion on whether Trump should have even brought this topic up. And I think that's what George Stephanopoulos was trying to do as he continued to press Donalds on why the lawmaker and Trump furthered questions into Harris's background, highlighting how she has always, according to Stephanopoulos, identified as biracial due to her Indian mother and Jamaican father. The two continued to argue back and forth, with Donalds repeating that it was the Associated Press. The Associated Press had published the article playing up Harris's Indian background when she won the U.S. Senate seat in California. But Stephanopoulos either wasn't listening or didn't want to hear what Representative Donalds was saying as they continued their back and forth.
If it doesn't matter, I don't understand why you keep on repeating it, why the president keeps on repeating it, why those introducing the president yesterday
George,
keep on repeating it.
I'm not the one who keeps repeating it. George, you're the one that's bringing it up now. That's you.
You've done it,
I understand why
sir.
You've done
it. You've done it 3 times. Every single answer you gave me. Now let me finish, sir.
George,
every single answer you gave, you repeated the slur.
Asked me, George. That's why I'm pushing back on you now. George, you
Right,
asked
and-
me the question 3 times. I responded, but I'm
And
also
every
about
single
what
time you
truly
repeat
matters
the
in this
slur,
election.
that is exactly my point. You simply can't say that it's wrong.
George, so then what you're saying, and I want to get off this topic because it's not the only thing that's going on. But George, now you're saying that AP is the one that slurred Kamala Harris, because those are the facts. You can go to the internet and look at the clips, George, if you want to, or we can talk about this now. I prefer to talk about the future of our country because the American people are struggling. The American people do need serious policy decisions to be made, and they need serious leadership on the world stage. Kamala Harris has not proven that she can do that. Donald J. Trump has proven that he can do that.
AP did not say that Kamala Harris is not black. She is biracial. She is Indian. She is black. You continue to repeat the fact that you continue to repeat the slur. I don't understand why you and the president do it, but it's clear you're not going to say that it's wrong.
And it was pretty clear that George Stephanopoulos was not going to let this drop. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself if you're looking for a new appliance to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. By the way, before we move on from this whole issue of Donald Trump and questioning Kamala Harris's race, Senator Lindsey Graham weighed in yesterday, too, issuing a warning to former President Trump to focus on Vice President Harris's bad judgment instead of her heritage as he runs for his second term in office. Graham was a guest on Fox News Sunday, where Fox's Jackie Henrick asked him about Trump's comments about Harris's racial identity last week. Trump, of course, posted an image of Harris's birth certificate on Truth Social after receiving a lot of criticism for the remarks that he made in the Q&A session at the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago last week. Heinrich asked Graham about Trump's comments and asked if it alienated millions of black voters in South Carolina. Here's Senator Graham.
Yeah, 30% of my state is African American. Nikki Haley is of Indian heritage, and one of her children married an African American Clemson football player. So here's what I would say to President Trump. The problem I have with Kamala Harris is not her heritage, it's her judgment. She has been wrong about everything. When she tried to explain what she would do about inflation and an upcoming recession, it made no sense. It's gibberish. She's been in the witness protection program. Nobody will ask her a hard question. Every day we're talking about her heritage and not her terrible, dangerous liberal record throughout her entire political life. Is a good day for her and a bad day for us. So I would encourage President Trump to prosecute the case against Kamala Harris's bad judgment.
It doesn't seem that he's received that message yet. I mean, he had an introductory speaker last night sort of double down on this conversation. Would you advise that he just stop talking about that?
I think, Mr. President, this is your election to lose. It's important you win to reset a broken border and get the world in good order. The American people are looking to have their problems solved. I think your presidency was an incredible presidency for national security and prosperity.
Senator Lindsey Graham yesterday on Fox News Sunday. Moving on to issues that really do matter and what's going to shape the race, not only for the Oval Office in November, but a lot of the down ballot races as well. It could determine the majority of the U.S. House It could allow the GOP to build on our majorities there. It could also allow us to regain a majority in the U.S. Senate. Likewise, it could cause us to lose our majority in the House and to allow the Democrats to maintain their majority in the U.S. Senate. And that's the old adage, it's the economy, stupid. Could this be the deciding factor in November's general election? The Daily Caller wrote over the weekend where the Wall Street Journal had interviewed different people, like Dawn Horn, who's a 39-year-old small business owner, mom of 5 in the Milwaukee area. She told the Wall Street Journal, "My dollar went further when Trump was president. I don't know what to expect from Kamala Harris." Then you had the 24-year-old Kayla Lang, who also talked to the Wall Street Journal, saying, "I always thought we were a more reasonable place to live. It's gotten out of control, and I blame the people in charge." Again, talking about living in Milwaukee. Wisconsin, of course, one of the battleground states. Before Joe Biden dropped out of the race, things were looking pretty good for Donald Trump, a potential upset in Wisconsin. Right now, it's a toss-up. Right now, with Kamala Harris now at the top of the Democrat ticket, it could go either way. But you have to look at the issues that people are going to have on their mind in the forefront of their minds when they pull the lever in November. And I still have, regardless of what all the polls are telling us, I still have this sneaking suspicion that the pocketbook issue is going to be what's going to dominate in people's minds as they make their decisions. The average cost of homes increased from an average of $371,000 in 2020 to over $500,000 this year. This is according to data from the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. The average price of daily necessities, like gas, has also increased, costing an average of $1.88 in April of 2020. It's now up to an average of $3.60, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This data is through June of this year. $1.88 per gallon to $3.60 per gallon. That is what gets the average American's attention. Being able to purchase a nice home for your family to live in has gone from $371,000 in 2020, which was high to begin with, to over $500,000. It's why you have so many young couples who are priced out of the housing market right now. In the last year, the median sales price went up 8% in Wisconsin, according to Redfin. This is the largest housing price jump across all 7 battleground states and double the U.S. average. Again, coming from the Wall Street Journal. David Dworkin, president of the National Housing Conference, told the Journal, "People are voting based on their sense of how they're doing financially, and the degree to which they feel like they have an opportunity in their lives is closely linked to their housing." And again, I told you last week about a study that showed of all the young couples and young people who are renting right now, they do not believe that they will be able to afford a house. And the bad part is, it's not that this is a temporary setback. So many of them in that survey indicated they don't believe they'll ever be able to buy a house. There is no hope. And when you eliminate hope, you get people in a place that we do not want them. Although Biden, of course, has passed the torch to Harris, 67% of voters think that her presidency would be a continuation of the current administration. And this is what she's running from. This is what how she has to try to separate herself from Joe Biden. So she's got to keep the base of the Democrat Party happy by pretending to be a team player, by pretending that she's been a part of the Biden administration while she's trying to play this hide-and-seek game with the independents, the people who will actually be the deciding factor, because the base of the Republican Party, they know what she is. That 40% or so of people who already know they're going to vote for Donald Trump, we know what Kamala Harris is. The deciding factor is going to be what those independents do. And according to the latest Harvard-Harris poll, they're not very impressed that she will do anything different than what's been happening these past 4 years with Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. Only a third of voters think that she can actually change direction on those key issues: taxes, inflation, immigration, and energy. The Wall Street Journal, John Johnson, a Marquette University Law School research fellow, also talking to the Wall Street Journal, said a few years ago it was really realistic to afford to buy something while making $50,000. Not anymore. I mean, did you ever think that we'd live in a day when earning $50,000 a year would barely keep you out of poverty? That earning $50,000 a year would not give you the opportunities to purchase a home and to do the things that you had been dreaming of doing since you finished school and went into the workforce? Speaking to the same Wall Street Journal writer, Democrat Nahona Moore, 28 years old, lifelong Democrat, said, when Trump was still president, if we were making what we make now, we would be set. And this is Harris's problem because, yes, people are making more money, but they can't spend, they can't buy as much as they did before. Part of the issue with the housing market is that there's a shortage of 4 to 7 million homes as of November of last year, according to an estimate by the Pew Charitable Trust. The shortage grew by 200,000 from 2021 to 2022, according to Zillow. Fernando Speranza, who works in customer service, told the Journal, we got frustrated with the situation and having to spend so much time and not finding what we were looking for. It should not be this hard when we have two good incomes. Talking about, again, trying to buy a home. And there's so many young families out there in this age range who now feel like they can afford a home. They either can't find one or they can't find one in the price range they're looking for. This is going to be the deciding factor. And this is why I believe that we need to encourage Donald Trump to stick to the issues. Get out of the personal issues. Forget about what color Kamala Harris is. Forget about it. I don't think that hurt him, but there's no reason to even be discussing it. Talk about what she and Joe Biden have done. Remind people over and over again that they're paying $3.60 on average for a gallon of gas. Remind everybody that the price of the average home is over $500,000 now. Remind everybody what interest rates are. Remind everybody about the economy, stupid. That's all we have to do. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Furman Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at FurmanFord.com, FurmanFord.com. On the text line, Will writes, Joey, there's no rational reason for negotiating a plea deal with Muslim terrorists. However, having studied the jihadist mindset for decades, the upside is that life in prison prevents them from becoming martyrs. The death penalty would make them martyrs revered by all Islamic extremists, complete with 72 virgins in paradise, and such stays would conceivably inspire more jihadists. Of course, Will is talking about the decision we learned about last week that has since been reversed. It was a stunning reversal late Friday of this plea deal for the mastermind behind the September 11th terror attacks and his accomplices, and it won praise and demands by many who had been critical of it last week, including yours truly. This was a crazy, crazy decision, and I'm glad that the Biden administration, I have to give them credit. I'm not sure how much Joe Biden had to do with it, but his Department of Defense evidently recognized how wrong this was. Speaker Mike Johnson posted on X after the news broke that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had revoked the deal, saying the Biden-Harris administration is correct to reverse course after receiving letters from at GOP oversight and at House Republicans launching investigations into this terrible plea deal. I'm sure that had something to do with their thinking. I'm sure the public outcry had something to do with it as well. He said, now deliver long-awaited justice for 9/11 families, meaning let's get on with this trial. Let's convict them. Let's put them to death like they did the almost 3,000 Americans under the World Trade Center attacks. Pentagon prosecutors stoked national outrage last week when they announced his plea agreement with Khalid Mohammed, Walid Mubarak bin Attash, and Mustafa Ahmed Adam, who are awaiting trial in the Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in Guantanamo Bay. The terms and conditions of the deal were never discussed. They weren't disclosed, but it took the death penalty off the table according to what we did learn about it. 3 relatives of 9/11 victims were told by the Office of Military Commissions, the OMC, who were interviewed by the New York Post and reported on this very widely last week. However, that deal was rescinded after Austin relieved the official in charge of the military commission who had signed off on the agreement and assumed their authority for himself. The secretary wrote in a short memo, effective immediately, in the exercise of my authority, I hereby withdraw from the 3 pretrial agreements that you signed on July 31st, 2024. Boy, that happened swiftly, as it should have. Again, kudos to Defense Secretary Austin for doing the right thing. Now, let's get on with it. Let's try them. We know that they're going to be convicted, and let's carry out a death sentence. The defense secretary did not explain why he had not intervened before the plea deals were signed and publicly released. Even so, his swift action to reverse course won praise from 9/11 families and a lot of the groups representing the 9/11 families. Terry Strada, National Chair of 9/11 Families United, said Defense Secretary Austin is displaying America's strength with his decision that America does not negotiate with terrorists. The media amplified our outcries for justice, and the same mercy will be given for the 3 detainees at Guantanamo Bay that murdered my husband. None, she said. Texter Suzanne says, I no longer wonder why the terrorists of 9/11 are having their lives spared for supposedly only saying that they're guilty. They would only be granted living this long without any decisions made in the first place. Someone must want them. With the prisoner swap yesterday between Russia and the United States, it has dawned on me that this has to be the reasoning. Like many others, I was the one who did not think this was logical, what they were doing, but now that would make perfect sense. And Suzanne is speculating that maybe part of the reversal was due to the fact that they could be involved in some future swaps. Surely Joe Biden would not allow these 3 terrorists to be swapped in some type of future deal. Just another reason to get Joe Biden back to Delaware, to retire him quickly. Faye says, Joey, this weekend I've heard about any number of folks who have election disease, quotation marks, called COVID. Here we go again. Let's hope not, Faye. I don't think we're going to sit back and allow what happened before to happen again. They may try, but I think the American people are going to push back. I don't believe we'll ever have the lockdowns, the shutdowns, and what happened in 2020 again. Our inspirational text of the day from Joel says, feeling sorry for ourselves is the most useless waste of energy on the planet. It does absolutely no good. We can't let our circumstances or what others do or don't do control us. We can decide to be happy. So we're going to be happy this week. Let's make that our goal. This is the week of happiness. I'm declaring it right now. The week of happiness. Thank you, Joel, for that text. Your texts are welcome, as are your emails, Joey at joeyhudson.com. One final thing here. Senator Tim Scott married his fiancée, Mindy Nochi, Saturday in a ceremony down in at Charleston's Seacoast Church, where, according to the local newspaper, the Post-Courier, the Republican senator, who's 58 years old, wed Nochi, who is 47. They were married in the chapel there, and the story is that they met at that church. Scott posted, "Tonight we promise to cherish and nourish each other and our marriage for the rest of our lives. Mindy, you've made me the happiest man alive. I love you." And you could just see the big smile on his face. One of the photos that was released after the wedding. The senator then quoted a Bible verse, Matthew 19:6. It reads, "So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." The event saw a variety of attendees from the political world, including former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Senator John Thune, Senator Lindsey Graham was there, and Representative Mark Walker. A number of people commented publicly. Walker wrote on X, "Congrats to Senator Tim Scott and Mindy on a beautiful wedding in Charleston. I love this man, and I've watched his heart for God lived out in a difficult arena." Former President Trump took to social media as well to congratulate Senator Scott, saying, "Senator Tim Scott and Mindy Nochi exchanged vows on Saturday in South Carolina. Congratulations to my longtime friend and his beautiful bride, Mindy, who were married today in the great state of South Carolina. You have a great future. God bless you both," he wrote on Truth Social. Others also. Trey Gowdy was there. It looked like a great event. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey at joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.